Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, Mr. Moohead. Get ready for, a few minutes of Cleveland Browns talk on Moohead Radio. How was your weekend? I'm sure you had a great time watching those Cleveland Browns. Boy, don't they field a competitive squad? Glad you feel the same way I do. In fact, since I stopped doing all of the halftime and post-game shows, I can honestly tell you that the Monday shows have gone to hell too, because nobody cares about the team anymore. But I'm going to talk about them today because it's, first of all, what's happening in Cleveland sports. And really, unless I go national, that's what I have to talk about. The Cavaliers were on a 4-day sabbatical, so we talk about the Cleveland Browns today. If you want to be on the program today, you can actually click right in. If you come over to mooheadradio.com and check out the chat room, the link is right there, so you'll have an opportunity to jump in. Yeah, people see the name of the show, The End of the Kessler Experiment. That's one thing we can talk about. But before we get there, obviously, there is something more pressing to talk about. And that would be the two veterans of the team, Joe Hayden and Joe Thomas, are lost. Hugh Jackson and his system has, and the front office's decisions have alienated, what were the two best players on the team. And both after the game had something to say. Joe Hayden pointed out something that nobody doubts, quote, "The Steelers don't really respect us as a defense." Well, why in the fuck should they? I'm going to go one step further about this, because there's more than just not being respected as a defense. They're not respected as an organization. They're not respected by the league. They're not respected by the officiating crews. They are a sad, sorry excuse for a professional franchise. And what Joe Hayden was referring to, and I'll quote him, "They really don't respect us as a defense. Some teams, you just go for the field goal, go for the guaranteed points, but we've got to stand up. They felt like they could go down and get a touchdown on us." Well, they did. That's exactly what they did. They went for the guaranteed points. They went for the touchdown. I don't understand what Joe Hayden's problem is. He's lost a step, and the defense stinks, and nobody's trying. I don't see anything that's difficult about that. Would you respect somebody who just quits in the middle of a game or even before the game begins? You cannot tell me, there is nobody that can tell me that grown men who are over 300 pounds on the defensive line, if they were trying a little, would be able to penetrate once in a game. Somebody would have to get into the backfield once. If they were even lousy, the worst 300-pound defensive lineman, a college defensive lineman, could find his way into the backfield once during the course of a football game, but not the Cleveland Browns defensive line, because they're playing at half speed. They're not trying. And it's obvious when Le'Veon Bell would get the football, and not only is the defensive line 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, I guess they took to heart what Xavier Cooper did, and they decided that they weren't going to line up offside. So instead, they're lining up 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, then get pushed back another yard. I mean, Le'Veon Bell literally was getting the ball, stopping, looking to his left and looking to his right to find where the hole was. There should have been 3 men swarmed on him in the backfield when you stop running with the football, but not against this bunch of clowns. It's, for me, one of the most unfathomable things that I've ever seen. And why Hugh Jackson, and we'll talk about his press conference in just a minute, why he doesn't seem to acknowledge that the players aren't trying. It's the thing that amazes me the most. Take a look at the size of the men and take a look at how they're being pushed backwards. They're not even trying. You can take a look at our running backs. Did you see Crowell's sorry excuse for a block? Or did you see Duke Johnson being pushed backwards by Timmons? And then on the following play, literally, Crowell laying down and letting Timmons hit the quarterback? It's not even trying. I mean, a grown man of size can get in somebody's way and at least slow them down. They're not trying. And I have a reason to believe that the reason they're not trying is because of the coaching staff, the entire coaching staff. I can see by the way that Hugh Jackson is handling this that he is a prime culprit along with Ray Horton and everybody else associated with the coaching staff of this organization. It's obvious because the one thing the coach won't say, he keeps saying, well, they're really trying hard. It's like, what the fuck are you looking at? Really trying hard? No. I'm sorry. I've watched a lot of football in my life, and this team is not trying hard. Joe Hayden says, respect is earned. In order to get respect, you have to show effort. And the team has quit. The season is over. The team's quit. They've quit blocking for the quarterback. They've quit rushing the quarterback. They don't blitz. They don't do anything. In all the years that I've watched football, this is by far the worst football team I've ever seen. This is far worse than 1999 was. Far worse. There is absolutely no effort. And you know what's also amazing to me? It's amazing that George Atkinson III is still returning kicks, and he runs 5 yards and stops. I mean, wouldn't you think that you would just try somebody else at that position if you were going to try to return a kick? Or Duke Johnson returning punts? Don't you think you would have a guy who actually had a burst and had some speed returning punts, trying to make a big play out of something? It's not happening. 31st out of 31st overall in the league defensively, giving up 409.5 yards per game. That's the Cleveland Browns defense that Joe Hayden, he sounds like Fredo from The Godfather. He wants respect, even though he's a big fucking pussy. That's the point of this. The team has no pride. The players have no pride. And then, as if the whole Hayden thing wasn't bad enough, you've got Joe Thomas. And Joe Thomas is telling the truth. By the way, after, and we'll talk about Terrell Pryor too, because he's another guy who's been lost. Matter of fact, let's talk about Terrell Pryor next, because Pryor was the guy who really came out the hardest in all of this. And what he had to say was real fucking serious. And he said what I would say, that somebody better start blocking. Somebody better start doing their job, because somebody's going to get killed. That's the basis of what Pryor said. Now, obviously frustrated when he said it, and I'm looking to see if I can get this up, because this is all over the news, and this, I guess this tablet has got a mind of its own and wants to stay on one story. All right. Let's see if I can find this now. I didn't save this story, which I should have done. My bad. At any rate, I'll just paraphrase, because I don't want to misquote the guy, but I'll paraphrase him. Terrell Pryor basically saying that there are people out there who are not blocking the man in front of them, and he's sick and tired of seeing the quarterbacks get hit. It sickens him to see it. It makes him sick. They're not doing their job. Quarterbacks are getting hurt, multiple quarterbacks, because guys are missing assignments and missing their blocks. And Hugh Jackson was upset about what Terrell Pryor had to say. And it's interesting how some coaches try to keep a team together. And here's what Hugh Jackson said about having an issue with what Terrell Pryor said. I do, because that's not Terrell's job. Terrell's the house nigger. See, Hugh's the HNIC, okay, head nigger in charge. Terrell is just a house nigger. It's not his job. I know he's frustrated, and we all are, Hugh said. No doubt we need to protect our quarterback, but that's not for him to say. Let's focus on ourselves and support each other. That's what good teams do, and that is what we are going to work to become. It's like, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to liken this to the military. I've always said, you always got to support the troops. I always hate that. Support the troops. Of course you've got to support the troops. Those are the guys who are out there, blood and guts, man. Now, your government, you don't have to support your government because they get you into things that you don't belong in. They get you into wars that you shouldn't be fighting. But that's not the soldier's fault. The soldier goes and fights and loses limbs or life trying to protect what the government and the country tells him to do. And then, in the end, the country that they try to save steals benefits from them. That's what the military did by getting people to enlist in the service and then giving them a bonus that now they're taking back. Oh, you risked your life back there. That doesn't count now. We want the money back. It's the same way with football, folks. The players are the guys, the Terrell Pryors are the guys who are risking life and limb so that an organization can make millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. They are expendable. You saw the commercial that the NFL ran. These are all the things that we're really doing to make the game safer, and not one of them mattered. They're showing fucking tablets. Well, we've got Microsoft Surface tablets that we can analyze what angles people are getting hit from. It's like, shut the fuck up. That's not doing anything. How about a helmet? How about a helmet that reduces impact to lessen brain trauma? Okay, I've done that. No. How about the equipment that they're wearing? No, I haven't changed any of that. How about all the air they're pumping into the goddamn helmets and all? Oh, no, they haven't changed that. And quarterback's getting concussions. No, they haven't done anything to protect him. And worse yet, they run that stupid fucking ad. And there's Terrell Pryor going over the middle for a pass. And he gets hammered in a helpless position. And you know, the Steeler guy just starts dancing and the referee looks the other way. No flag. No flag. You just kill him. He's going to die in the middle of the fucking field. The NFL doesn't give a shit about that. Neither do you. I do. And so does Terrell Pryor. He gives a shit about it because he's sitting there watching. He was a quarterback. And he's watching what's happening to Cody Kessler and Josh McCown. He's watching one after another go down. These are the men, the soldiers who are protecting the game. These are the soldiers protecting the integrity of the game. And you know something? They do nothing for them. Once they're retired, you're on your own, son. No, we don't have any health insurance. It's going to help you deal with the dementia that's coming your way later. It's no different than the fucking soldiers, the military, and the government. No different whatsoever. And of course, Hugh Jackson says it's not Terrell's job. It's Terrell's job to die. You know? Just like the generals. It's not the soldiers' job to speak up and question what we're doing. It's their job to die, Mr. Bond. That's their job. Shut the fuck up and die. Make millions for Haslam so that he doesn't pay rebates and die on the field. And I'm proud of Terrell Pryor for speaking out. I am proud of him. That is the right thing to do. I'm proud of Joe Thomas. That is the right thing to do. Let me tell you what good football teams do, Hugh. Good football teams draft the right players. Good football teams hire the right executives. Good football teams hire the right coaches. Look at the Miami Dolphins and Adam Gase. Adam Gase is a tough guy. He's a real... Hi, Michelle. How you doing? No, I can't hear you. Unfortunately, you got to figure out how to get your microphone working again. Sorry about that. But she's trying to get on the air. They were talking about how Adam Gase gave tough love to the players, and, you know, he's getting guys to execute in Miami, and they were horrible to begin the year. They barely beat us. And now look at them. You back with me, Michelle? There you go. Can you hear? Yeah, I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So what we're talking about are the Browns, Joe Hayden, Joe Thomas, Terrell Pryor. And I'm saying how proud I am of Terrell Pryor for speaking out on behalf of the quarterbacks, and Hugh Jackson trying to shut him up. You know, Jackson stressed the need to stick together. We're going to continue to have each other's backs. I have to do that better too. It's an everyday and every situation deal for me in this football team. We're going to work our way through it. We're going to stay together. We're going to stay committed. We're going to get better. That's a pipe dream. Nobody wants to play for this idiot because he's getting people killed on the field. The fact of the matter is the players, there is no excuse for a team to have a system. I mean, you would simplify the system if you wanted to save their lives. This is real simple. You know, they only ran the football 10 times the whole fucking game. What did they think was going to happen to the quarterbacks when you run the football 10 times in an entire game against the Pittsburgh Steelers? What do you think? They're going to pin their ears back and they're going to crush the quarterback. You know, I would rather they ran the ball into the middle of the line, Woody Hayes style, and had to 3 and out and 3 and out and 3 and out and save a young kid's life than letting him suffer yet another concussion at the hands of a team that's intentionally trying to injure the Browns every time they play us and giving them carte blanche to take off. You know, it isn't about winning and losing right now because this team isn't good enough to win. You know what it's about? It's about trying to harness what resources you have for the future. And what they've done is they've destroyed every guy who's taken a snap behind idiot Cam Irving. These people are not able to secure safety for the person who's in the most important position on the field. And the head coach refuses to accept responsibility, except to keep giving the Harry High School rah-rah speech of, oh, you know, Al Green, let's stay together bullshit. And none of the players feel this way. And the veterans are trying to tell him, this is not acceptable, Hugh. The guys that Hal Hunter, you can't have offensive linemen missing assignments play after play and getting your quarterbacks killed play after play. You can't have a bad offensive line that allows you to only run 10 times in a football game. You can't have that. You need better personnel. It's a statement. Joe Thomas directly put it on the organization. And I'm proud of him too, because he stuck around long enough for this to have improved by now, and it's gotten worse. His quote, "You've got to lie in the bed you've made." Honest to God, isn't that the fucking truth? Joe Thomas saying, you're the idiots who got rid of Alex Mack. You're the idiots who got rid of Mitchell Schwartz. You're the idiots that get rid of good players and draft the wrong guys and put people into positions they never played in college. You're the guys who do that. We're the guys who are dying, who are shortening our lives for you so that you can make fucking money. You know, and I noticed that Hugh didn't exactly go after Joe Thomas as much because, you know, when a black man criticizes a black man, it's different because head nigger in charge has to put house nigger in his place. And that is exactly how Hugh Jackson views Terrell Pryor. He said so. He didn't use the expression house nigger, but he might as well have. That's not his job to comment about this. That's what they used to say about the house nigger, who might have said to the plantation owner, you know, it's awful hot out there and you're working them awful hard. That ain't your job. Your job is to dust over there and to clean that window and to scrub that floor. That's your job.
Terrell Pryor is the only guy on this team right now that's taken any kind of leadership role whatsoever. Did you notice when Kessler went down, he was the only one that was over there checking on him. He was the only one standing by him. And then when he took that hit, the hit that Pryor took was even nastier. And the guy was fucking dancing around as Pryor's laying on the ground in pain. You can't tell me that was a clean hit or a good hit. That was nasty hit. That was nasty football. That's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers have always done. To say that there's no rivalry left between these two teams is stupid, because they are absolutely always going to go for blood against the Cleveland Browns. And the more pathetic they are, and the weaker that they are, the easier it is for guys like the Steelers to go after them. And they do go out there with the intent to hurt. They absolutely 100% want to hurt every last player on the field. And you're right. I'm totally proud of Terrell Pryor for stepping up and for being the voice of this team, and for finally saying, you know what, this is bullshit. This is enough. Nobody cared when Kessler got hit. Nobody cared when he got hit. When is it going to stop?
I'll tell you when it's going to stop. And that's when you chicken wing Big Ben the way that they chicken wing Kessler, and you put him out on a stretcher for good.
And they won't do that because our own defensive coordinator says we're not going to blitz big name quarterbacks. We're not going to go after those kind of guys.
They don't have the attitude to go out and play with aggression anyway. They're playing at half speed, and they're not even trying. And of course, I mean, you know what it's like? It's like beating the shit out of a Quaker. I mean, there is. And of course they're going to dance around, I mean, they're going to crush us into the ground and dance around, and there's no taunting, there's no nothing, no flag, no bad hit flag, no taunting flag, no nothing. It doesn't matter, because the team has no respect from the entire league, and that is all on the ownership and the coaching staff. And if this coaching staff had any pride in itself whatsoever, it would have told the players to retaliate in kind, because you're not going to win the game anyway, but God damn it, you can end their season with one brutal hit. And if that's what it comes down to, this is state-sanctioned violence. This is not a game. You said it best. The guy tried to hurt Terrell Pryor, and when he was successful, he was happy. He wasn't happy that he made a good play. He was happy that the guy was on the ground and hurt.
Yep.
He was celebrating the fact that he injured somebody. I can't watch that. I can't justify that.
And then you've got Josh McCown, who's putting the blame all on his own shoulders. When I saw that quote this morning on Twitter, let's see what it said. He said, he feels like he could have helped better. He could have helped the protection issues, could have made it better, and said to point the blame at him. Josh McCown is the one that's needing the protection. He's not supposed to be out there protecting anybody but himself. And for him to take the blame like that, I said he sounds like a battered woman in an abusive marriage. He sounds like the guy. He sounds like the woman who's got two black eyes and said, well, I shouldn't have talked back to him,
Well,
and
it's
getting old. I mean, even Joe Thomas says something. When Joe Thomas is at the end of his rope and he actually has a voice to says, you know what, this is fucking bullshit. This is a joke. Well, when Joe Thomas finally snaps that it's all going to be real from here on out, they should do exactly what the Texas football team is planning to do because of Charlie Strong's firing. They're planning on boycotting their final game as players. And you know what? I would love to see the Browns go out there and go, you know what? Fuck you. We're not
playing for you. Anymore. Not playing for you. I'm not going to play for a guy who just wants me to die out on the field, yep. Won't put anybody in front of me, won't coach anybody up to play hard enough to protect me. Fuck that. I mean, yep. I remember the good old days when Kozar used to go out and buy gifts for his offensive linemen. I mean, these offensive linemen, they're trying to get the quarterback killed. They're not even paying attention to what they're doing. I mean, if I have to watch Cam Irving one more time, I mean, double clutch a snap and get a penalty, back-to-back penalties, missing blocks, standing and turning and watching his man smother the quarterback. That guy should not even be on the team. Yeah. He shouldn't even be out there. If he is not trying, he shouldn't be out there. And God forbid if he is trying, and that's all the better he is, he shouldn't be on the field. He shouldn't be playing professional football. It's unbelievable. The quote by Joe Thomas, well, we lost a couple of really good players. I think the best at their positions, said Thomas. But that was our strategy in the offseason. That's what we decided to do. And you've got to lie in the bed that you've made. I don't make the decisions on who comes and goes. So that's not something that I can concern myself with. But that says it all. It's North Dallas 40, the movie. That's what it is.
For the last few years, we've been trying to analyze what's wrong with this team. What can we do to make it better? When it was Joe Banner, it was his fault. When it was Ray Farmer, it's his fault. When it was Holmgren and the Lombardis, and it was always something to blame. And, there's no depth on this team. Well, next year they're going to do this, and they're trying to do that. There's no way that anybody can believe that bullshit anymore. There's no drive behind Jimmy Haslam and the people in charge of this team to make it any better or to do anything regarding player safety or player well-being. You can't tell me that anybody actually cares anymore. And that's got to be depressing to go to work knowing that the people who pay you don't give a fuck whether you live or die on any given Sunday. That's got to be something.
It takes a man to do a man's job. And let me explain that I know only too well what it's like to go into losing situations. It's what I did for a living, Michelle. I bought radio stations. And
you fixed them. You had a plan and the ability and the know-how and the wherewithal to make it want to be better. And, you benefited, but everybody around you benefited. You took care of all the people that worked for you.
Every
and that
person
you acquired.
who worked at those stations before I arrived were battered and beaten emotionally because they were working for companies. In one instance where the guy who was managing the station who was the out-of-town manager, put a girl in who he was fucking to run the station. I mean, it was an unbelievable situation. That's what happened in Flint, Michigan. That was at WWCK in Flint, Michigan. And we had another guy when I took over in Binghamton, New York, who was the general manager, who bounced girls on his, one girl in particular, on his knee during sales meetings, and who would flash his Rolex watch and would, he was Mr. Appearances, and they were going down the shitter. And, and I had a lot of respect for the owner of the Binghamton station that I purchased it from. And he just didn't realize. I said to him afterwards, I said, that general manager was really screwing you. He was costing you all kinds of money. But the fact is, the way you bring people together is you improve the situation. And the way you improve the situation is that you know what you're doing, and you've done that before. But you put a boy in a man's job and you end up with panic. You end up with weird formations that players don't know how to run. Deciding to run the football 10 times a game and getting your quarterbacks killed. You end up with people who have never faced a crisis like this before. And it's obvious from what he's saying in his press conference. I mean, it is, he is saying that he's never confronted this stuff before. And, I would even rather have a college coach who brought a losing college program to victory than a professional coach who had coached as a coordinator and once as a head coach in one season for the Oakland Raiders, and have him at press conferences saying things that are obvious where, I'm trying to find his exact quotes. On if keeping the team together is one of the challenges of coaching the team, absolutely. These guys work extremely hard. Can you believe this? I mean, this is what he sees. These guys work extremely hard. They come in this building every day and they're in here working their tails off with the expectation to go out and win and play well. When that doesn't happen, frustration does set in for everyone involved. I am going to be the calming voice and the calming leader that is going to get through all this. And we're going to understand that there's one way, and it is kind of my way. We will all work together and we will figure it out from there. Well, you're 11 games in, Hugh, and your way isn't working. And in fact, your best players are saying that your way isn't working. Your quarterback can't say it because he's in concussion protocol for the second time this season. And, this is, on building a winning culture. I'll be the first to tell you that this is tough, Hugh Jackson said. It's something we have to do. We have to move beyond the past. We have to make a new future here. How many times have you heard this?
Every year.
We do need to make that as fast as we can. I don't want anyone to think we're not trying. There are some things and some T's to cross and some I's we need to dot. Are you kidding me? Are you
cliches? All a bunch of cliches just to cover up the actual issues because they have nothing to say about it. He's not even giving you the LeBron James mea culpa. He's not even saying, you know what, this is my bad. He's blowing smoke up your ass with cliches.
Well, here's another thing. How is he personally dealing with the Brown struggles? Yeah, I've talked to several people. I wish to keep anonymous. Trust me, though, this is tough. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not. I can't tell you that. I've never encountered this. I have never encountered this. But at the same time, I know what I signed up for. I truly believe I am the man for the job. That has not shown, and I respect that, and I understand how our fans feel. But I am not running from this. I am going to run through it. We're going to battle, just like Pat Shurmur battled. You know, the fact that you say that you have never encountered this is the end of the conversation to me. Because you've hired a boy to do a man's job. Everybody knew how deep the water was. Everybody knew in Cleveland how deep the water was and how the losing seasons and how it was getting worse and worse and worse. Hugh Jackson wanted to get back into the head coaching circle. He had been a coordinator long enough, and he jumped at the opportunity just like everyone else did, just like Shurmur did. I mean, I can't even name all the coaches we've had. God only knows. They all jumped at the opportunity because they weren't head coaches. And they'd never done this before. And each guy that comes in, it gets progressively worse, and they don't know what to do. And this coach thinks he's going to trick play his way out of this. They've got the worst offense they've ever had. This is the worst offense I've ever seen the Cleveland Browns have. And it's because we have an offensive line that doesn't block. And we got rid of all of our offensive linemen, and we didn't pay them. And Alex Mack is turning Atlanta into a winner because they have an anchor in the center. Their fortunes have been vastly improved because they got a good player and were willing to pay him. So Joe Thomas is right. The decisions that are made lead to this. But if you've never done it before, I mean, that's like the guy who goes out and watches, the Flip This House show on TV, and says, "I'll go out and buy a house and flip it." Never done it before. Mm-hmm. They get halfway through the flip, they're out of money, they have to run, and they have to bail. You see it all the time. If it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. And honest to God, if it were that easy to turn around a team like the Cleveland Browns, everybody would have been interested in the job. But the only guy we could get was the one guy who was trying to get back into the head coaching ever since Oakland fired him, and it was the middle of a power struggle. Big talker, small doer. Never encountered this before. It's hard for me to cheer for a team that, I'm going to bring up the ghost of Marty Schottenheimer. People in Cleveland do not remember Marty Schottenheimer well because in the big game.
I remember Marty.
Well, they didn't like him because he didn't come up large in the postseason because he was a very conservative guy and he was always defense first and always play to stay close and he lost close games and then prevent defenses. He didn't take chances. He wasn't like Sam Rutigliano, who was the riverboat gambler. He was the antithesis of that. He was like, Mr. Utter fiscal responsibility, and he's the guy who people watched in the casino. He would never play the games. He would just watch people. He was a conservative guy. Yeah. But one thing about Marty, he won every place he was, and there was a reason why. And I remember the thing that players said, and they would shake their heads about Marty, and they'd say, he makes us wear a fucking jacket and tie on the road. And I always said to myself, that every team that he coached, it was the jacket and tie. And the players were like, fuck, and cut your beard off, that kind of stuff, But it started with the small details, but nobody questioned that Marty Schottenheimer bled for his team. And they played hard for him, God damn it. Whether he was in Washington, whether he was in Cleveland, whether he was in Kansas City, they played hard for him. And it's obvious when somebody inspires players to play at a high level, and then we watch what our guys are doing and they're not trying at all, that Hugh Jackson inspires nobody. Ray Horton inspires nobody. Hal Hunter inspires nobody. And it's obvious. And I don't know. It's we hired the wrong guy. And I'm not sure that the right guy has to be a guy who's willing to blow it up in a different way. But I've always said, you've got to have a plan. And first of all, the plan has to be a damn good one. But the next thing that a leader has to do is sell the plan to the troops. That's the way it works. And if the plan, we went through this in Vietnam, if the plan is bad and you ask the troops to execute a bad plan and they get slaughtered, well, that's why they were getting stoned and listening to Doors tapes. Why do you think that was happening in Vietnam? Because they weren't engaged, because they saw, you were taking over real estate that was meaningless, and men around them were dying for meaningless advancement. It wasn't going anywhere. And pretty soon you become numb to it. Pretty soon you start thinking that you're trying hard, but you're really not. You're going through the motions, and you escape from the whole thing. And then suddenly it doesn't really matter anymore. That's when the plan isn't sold to the troops. The plan's bad. And instead of saying, all right, that part of the plan wasn't very good, you do what Hugh Jackson said. We're going to do it my way. Even if I get 4 more quarterbacks killed, God damn it, we're going to do it my way. That's not what the team wants to hear, because his way isn't working.
Right.
Ugh.
It's not even just Hugh. It's everybody in the front office. Just like Joe, referenced. It's everyone. It goes all the way down to Jimmy and D, because everybody knows D has to be in on everything for some fucking stupid reason. Jimmy's in the middle of another trial or some kind of court case for his dirty rebate scam, and his head has never been in the game either. He's one of those guys that he was a 10% owner or something like that of the Steelers when he bought the team. He didn't know anything about running a football team. He didn't know anything about running pilot, flying J. How the hell is he going to run a football team? He doesn't know anything about football. All he knows about football is Tennessee Volunteers and Tennessee this. Well, this isn't high school football on a Friday night. These aren't kids. These aren't college players even. These are grown-ass men that depend on some kind of structure. And they haven't had it in 15 years, 17 years if you want. This team is not the old Browns. These are not the Browns that I grew up with. My Browns died in 1995 when Bill Belichick and the whole team got taken in the middle of the night. That's when the real Browns died. Since then, we've had nothing but a shell. We've had a uniform, but we've never had anything that's been even remotely close to the legacy that the Cleveland Browns have been our entire lives. There's no wonder that my 6-year-old doesn't even want to watch them. He could care less about the Cleveland Browns. I put Browns sheets on his bed, and he asked if I was punishing him. I mean, he hates them. He hates watching them because he knows that they're stupid, and he knows that they're not going to win, and he knows that it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I'm just saying hi to Big Lurker.
I can't get into the chat on my phone for some reason. I was trying to sign into it, but I can't.
Sorry about that.
I mean, it's frustrating, And then you've got generations that have LeBron James and the Cavs. Look at the way those guys come together. Look at the way they're being led. Look at everything they're doing, from the owner who hands out rings to the concession workers and the ticket takers. Now, that's a well-oiled, well-run team. Say what you want about Dan Gilbert, but that team is a winning team, and there's a reason for it. There's a formula. There's pride in what he does, and you don't see that at all with this organization.
We wanted to play at tempo, all right? David Blatt said to the team, you got to play faster. And they wouldn't do it.
Right.
You got to share the basketball. There's no respect
for him either.
They wouldn't do it. You got to whip the ball around. They wouldn't do it because they hired, unfortunately in that instance, a boy to do a man's job when they didn't realize that it was really a man's job because the big veterans were coming in. I mean, it was a bad hire, and it may not have been a bad hire if they were dealing with younger guys to have a little harder ass guy out there who might have, younger players would have believed David Blatt. Veterans had no use for him. Teron Lue comes in and says, we got to play faster. Now they're averaging 108 points per game. And, you know, we got to pass the ball. And they're averaging like 24 assists a game. You know, I mean, this is, they're doing what they're told to do because they've bought in. Again, the plan is that we're going to do this, 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 and this. And when you see how good it is, you're going to wonder, why weren't we doing this all along? That was the pitch in the radio stations I own. It's like winning is not unusual. I mean, you don't have to win every game. You don't have to be numero uno. But the fact of the matter is you can be respected by people on the street as a business, as a successful business. And what we're doing is we're painting ourselves as a successful business. And the Cleveland Browns, you know, you've got to paint yourself, if nothing else, as a rugged bunch of guys. You got to be able to paint yourselves as, if you're going to come after our guys, we're going to come after your guys. And if you're going to deliberately try to injure our guys, we're going to deliberately try to injure your guys. And it's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt us because we're going to lose every game anyway. We're not going to even get a whiff of the playoffs. But you're in the hunt, Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're going to take Le'Veon Bell out by his knees. We're going to crack back block him, and we're going to cripple him. All right? And that's too bad for Le'Veon Bell because, believe me, I have nothing against the guy. But when Mike Tomlin tells his guys to go out and try to injure, every one of his offensive stars becomes a target with a big fucking bullseye in their back. That's the way it works. When you adhere to a system that tries to injure your opponent, then you are making your players susceptible to injury. And nobody would argue that the Steelers, that Timmons deserve to be taken out for what he did. Now, I didn't even touch him. I didn't touch him. I didn't hit him. It's like, yeah. And why was your elbow out as you went by him at head level? Why that? And why did his head crash against the ground? Why were you
dancing when you saw him lying there motionless? I mean, the fact that they even spoke after that, a couple plays later, I can't imagine what Terrell was saying to him. If there was hey, man, are you okay? I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry about that. There's no fucking way any Pittsburgh Steeler would say that in the middle of the game. I mean, if you take away the expansion team and the fact that, you know, these aren't the same Browns and the fact that they're weak as fuck, growing up in the 80s and watching the Browns and the Steelers play, it didn't matter how bad our team was at the time. You knew it was going to be an ugly game because those guys went out there with hatred in their hearts. And they don't do that anymore. These guys are a bunch of dogs that have already laid down and died. They're just laying down waiting to take it because they don't have any fire inside of them. They don't have anything driving them to assert themselves on the field. And they don't have anybody leading them to believe that they should be. When you have somebody pussifying your entire defense, saying you're not going to blitz somebody because he's a big name and you're not that kind of player, get the hell out of here. Go after Tom Brady for all I care. Lacerate his fucking spleen for all I care. Get ugly. Go show that you have some kind of passion in you for what you're doing. Don't just go out there and collect a paycheck. You can't do that at any other job. Just like I don't respect nurses who strike because you take an oath to take care of your patients. It's not about you. It's not about your paycheck. It's about what you're doing in your profession that you care about, that you're passionate about. You see guys come out of college, ready to go, raring to go, and then they come onto the Browns team and it's like, oh, there goes my career. There goes my life. I'll probably get hurt. I'll be on the IR by game 6. There's nothing lighting these guys up. They are the joke of the league, whether it's from the front office or to the guys on the field. Everybody knows they can come after him. Everybody knows they can take him down. Nobody's afraid to go for it on 4th and 15 against our defense because they know that they're going to be able to make a play. Even Joe Hayden, I mean, he shouldn't be running his mouth because that dude never turns around to look at the freaking ball.
Nope.
My grandma could fucking catch a ball on
Hayden anymore.
He can't even walk.
He doesn't want to play there anymore.
He doesn't give a shit. No, he had his big moments. He had his, publicity fun. He married a psycho bitch. He cheated on her several times, and now she's got his nuts in her fucking purse, and he'll never play again. His groin issues are the fact that Sarah's got his fucking balls wrapped around her wrist. He's not been the same. This is what happens. These guys make their money. They think they're on top of the world, and then they don't do anything to keep it. And when you get to Cleveland, it's like the whole thing's out. Like you have nothing to live for. It's like you come to Cleveland, you're dead. It's gone. It's over. Your career's over. The biggest joy
that I had in business was walking in and seeing a defeated group of people, and then a year later watching those people winning. And to engage somebody, and I'm going to use Joe Hayden as an example. If you put another cornerback who has coverage skills into the backfield along with Joe Hayden, safeties who take the right path to the ball, people who don't give up big plays, then your professional pride goes up when you are surrounded by better people. When you're surrounded by people who are lousy people, who don't do their job and who aren't working hard, your energy level goes down and you underachieve. And that's what's happening with Joe Hayden. It's a matter of, and I know they say, well, you've got to have professional standards and all this, but it's human. It's human. I watch this. I mean, 80% of the people who, when I walked into a radio station, kept their jobs. The 20% were unsalvageable because their attitude was so bad. But the other 80% were the same people who were losing, and they bought into the thing. And it was really joyful to watch people succeed when they were failing a year earlier, because it was like, first it was validation that the plan worked. So it was an ego stroke for me, for sure. But it made a difference for those people in their lives and how they supported their families. It was just important. And it was like, yeah, this is the way this works. And we made, it's like the tide. It rises and everything rises with it. And when we raised the tide of the radio stations, as far as the product was concerned, everybody raised up with it, and everyone worked a little harder and tried a little harder. I mean, I don't blame Joe Hayden for not putting out, because nobody's putting out. I mean, he sits there and he watches the offense getting quarterbacks killed. Listen to what Hugh Jackson had to say. Why we only run the ball 10 times in a game? Quote, we were not running the ball well. At the end of the day, we have to do what we have to do to try to win the game. Now, what sense does that make? If you couldn't run the ball, why would you think you could pass the ball? It's the same guys up front. It's the same fucking guys up front. Don't you think that you should be scouring waiver wires and picking up people and having live tryouts on Sunday? I mean, when that Austin Reiter guy came in at center, he played way better than Cam Irving did. He was a guy who was on a practice squad, and he came in with no work and did a much better job. He tore an ACL, unfortunately. It was a bad break. But the fact is, if you are at a point where your answer to the question is, we tried 10 times, we couldn't do it, so we quit, you need new people on the field. I don't care where you find them. You cannot play with that group of people because they're dangerous. They're getting people killed. And and this doesn't give you a better chance to win the game, to put Cody Kessler in harm's way. That doesn't help give you a better chance. And let me say this, because the end of the Kessler experiment, it ended yesterday. Cody Kessler can't play in windy weather in Cleveland. He doesn't have the arm strength. We saw it. And what the sad thing is about it, he tried to throw the long ball because Hugh Jackson ridiculed him in previous weeks, saying, he couldn't throw the long ball. So he comes out and he tries in a 30-mile-an-hour wind. Fuck. Ben Roethlisberger could not hit the long ball yesterday, okay? I mean, couldn't. I mean, he threw one long ball that blew 5 yards in the other direction and it ended up on the sideline when it was supposed to be going toward the middle of the field. You couldn't control where the long ball was going. But everything was underthrown by Kessler. When he tried to throw the deep ball, it was always underthrown, and it's obvious that in windy conditions in Cleveland, where he's going to have to play, it ain't Bakersfield, California, where he grew up. This is not, he's not the guy. He's not the guy, and he really should retire because he deserves to live a full life. And being in Cleveland is not the way to live a full life. So, but the experiment's over there. He can't play the position. I'm good with it. I still believe that if we had any kind of an imaginative coach whatsoever, he'd realize that you coach and scheme to the player's strength, not to the weakness, instead of badgering the player in the off week that he can't throw the long ball and then dialing up a bunch of long ball throws for him in the game to prove that he can't do it. I think that you should be kind of scheming for something that he does better, but that isn't Hugh Jackson, because we're going to do it my way. That's the way it's going to be. It's going to be done my way.
Yeah, when he benched him a couple weeks ago for McCown, and he ended up just throwing, 6 picks, and he fumbled it like 3 or 4 times. It was ridiculous. And I think he made a statement there. And you can't put all the blame on Kessler. You can't expect a rookie to come into this shit show, pick it up, put it on his shoulders, and say, guess what? I'm going to fix everything. This isn't Steve Young under 5 or 6 years of Joe Montana. And the guys in the coaching staff, there's no cohesion whatsoever. Nobody's working together. Nobody's doing anything together. The only thing I saw out of the defense yesterday that showed the tiniest little bit of spark was when Danny Shelton pushed Roethlisberger back down on the ground. That's the only thing I saw out of the defense that looked like they gave a fuck yesterday. And even that was fleeting. There's nothing between the offense and the defense. There's nothing between the coaches. There's nothing between ownership and the GM. It's like everybody's doing their own little thing, and that doesn't get you anywhere. When everybody's trying to get up the same ladder instead of helping each other go, nobody gets anywhere anytime fast. These guys are killing themselves. They're destroying themselves. And, would you want to go into work every day? Would you want to walk into that kind of environment? And it's not even just a job. This is your physical livelihood. This is your body. This is your life. And did you see the Carolina game on Thursday? Did you see Kuechly after he came to? It was so disturbing to me. What he was doing was
tears.
You know what? To me, I've seen that in stroke
Tim Couch.
victims. And no, this was not.
Tim Couch cried after having a concussion on the field.
This is like pseudo-Bulber affect, where it's like there's something in his brain that just gets shut off. Some people get concussed and they just laugh hysterically because they can't control their physical emotions, or like he couldn't breathe. His whole body was in shock. And I'm watching this and I'm going, Jesus, because you know how I am about guys crying, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, that's not a man who's crying because he's sad or he's hurt. That's somebody who doesn't even know where the fuck he is.
Well,
and if somebody like Kuechly can get hurt like that, you imagine we're going to see a Brown die on the field. We're going to see probably Josh McCown get his neck broken, and that's going to be the end of it. And Cam Irving's going to still be going, huh? Wait, what?
Well,
what town is it?
Ziffles is in the chat room saying, Moo, what happened to your football is too violent stance of a couple of weeks ago? And the answer to the question is, I stopped watching the game yesterday because it made me ill. What they did to Terrell Pryor made me ill, and dancing over his prone body made me ill. And no, I'm real consistent about this. My parents taught me, as your parents taught you, that if somebody starts picking on you, you got to fight back. And if you're playing a game which is a violent game, if this is the way you're earning your money, I don't like to watch this. And I believe that it is a sport that should be abolished. I really do. But if you're in the middle of playing the game, and this is what happens, you have to defend yourself. You have to fight back. And if you don't, you're going to watch all of your comrades go down one after another with concussions because the Steelers are intentionally trying to do it. And you know something? The reason that they get away with it, because he's also saying, well, how about the fact that certain teams are allowed to get away with it as far as, that type of thing? And the answer is because they do it repeatedly, and you got to do it repeatedly. And it doesn't matter how many 15-yard penalties you get. The way that the Steelers will cut the shit out is when you take their players out of the game and you ruin their chances of making the playoffs by just making ridiculous, bodacious hits that injure their players. And this is what lawlessness looks like. That's what it is. That's what the game is. It is state-sponsored violence. It is violence for profit. They're not trying to clean the game up. So I just say, hey, This is just like one of these frontier towns in the Old West. You're going to give the best gun shooter in town the sheriff's badge. Then that's the way it is. You're going to get a shootout every day until people stop coming to town. And that's what we have to do. I'm trying to respond to all the...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I want to comment the other comments he made. We've talked about the fact that the Kessler experiment is over, Ziffels. He held on to the ball too long. He was confused. He didn't know what to do. And sure, he proved that he can't throw in the wind and the elements in Cleveland. So I move on from that. And I hope he never plays again because I don't want him to die on the football field. So that's the answer to that you're commenting on in the chat room. Cam Irving, we already talked about the fact that he shouldn't even be on the field and that we should be hiring an offensive line from players who are on waiver wires from other teams. We should do whatever we can. If our practice squad isn't good enough, we have to go and find people on the waiver wire because the fact of the matter is that the guys who are playing up there are simply not good enough to play. Ziffels is saying you can't coach that way. That's why there are rules. No, that is how Tomlin coaches. I'm sorry, Ziffels, you're wrong again. That is how Mike Tomlin coaches because he doesn't pull his players out of the game. He didn't have a problem when on a 3rd and 17, his guy cheap shot at our quarterback and gave us an automatic first down. He didn't have a problem with that. That's what he coaches his guys to do, to hurt people.
That's the fabric of this team. It has been for the last 40 years. They're just dirty, ugly players coached by dirty, ugly guys that want to get nasty. They will win it, and they'll do anything to win at any cost. They don't care who they hurt or what they do. And it's always been that way, but at least the Browns used to fight back. My Browns used to not take that shit. You know what I mean? There would always be scuffles between every play. There was shit going down on the sidelines. There were punches being thrown the whole game. They used to stand up for themselves. You know why nobody considers it a rivalry anymore is because these guys have just laid down and accepted the fact that they're never going to do anything. So they don't even fight anymore. And it's pathetic. It's so pathetic.
And the officials, I don't want to hear the excuse about the officiating. The officials are employees. They're employees of the league. They are doing the league's bidding. Stop with the officiating thing because it's no different than Jimmy Haslam's employees at his trucking company. They knew damn well about the rebate thing. They knew damn well, and they were doing what they were paid to do and what they were told to do. And it was dishonest. And the officials are doing dishonest things because the league is a dishonest league. There's no
accountability in this team or in the entire league. Hugh Jackson is blaming Cody Kessler for the team being dog shit. He's blaming him, and Josh McCown is accepting the blame that they have no protection. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Stiff arm everybody that's coming at you while you're still trying to throw the football? It's the same thing Goodell is doing. Oh, people aren't watching, not because they're worried about injuries, not because things are, unfair or disgusting when women come out and say, hey, my husband beat the crap out of me and you did nothing about it. No, he says it's because of what the fuck doesn't even start. Nobody wants to be held accountable for any of the bullshit that's going on, not only on this team, but in the entire league. Nobody's taking responsibility and everybody's just shifting blame. So nobody has to do anything about it.
And, and again, the argument about the officials have to stop what they're doing. I'm going to tell you something else, Ziffels. You got to wake up and live in the real fucking world. Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate has to change what they're doing. But you see, in the end, the people who own them won't let them do it. And you have to understand, this is not some conspiracy theory. Right. This is the business, It is, they're doing what they're told to do. And the goddamn congressmen are being bought and sold by big special interests, and it doesn't matter who's elected president or who's in the cabinet, whether they're deplorable people or hardliner people. It's the people in the Senate and in the House of Representatives where our legislation is drawn up and written and passed. that these are the people who sneak in these provisions in the name of big companies. And the fact is, the NFL is the biggest company of all. The officials are paid, wouldn't have a job without the league. They're in no position to start doing things in an honest fashion, or else they will lose their jobs. They will be fired. Ziffel says, I hate it when you condescend to me. No, I think it is what you're saying. In a perfect world, if you were living like Bubble Boy, that it would be great. But that's not the way the world is. It is not coincidental that the officials allow the Steelers to do this. It is not coincidental that the relationship between Roger Goodell, the NFL, and some franchises in the NFL is stronger than the others, that those teams consistently get beneficial calls. This is not coincidental, any more coincidental than when companies end up, like we are going to end up with the first thing that Trump does is going to try to repeal the Dodd-Frank law so that the bankers then can start making the risky loans again and stick the taxpayers with the bill like they did in 07-08. This is not coincidental. This is the way the system is built. I don't think you're fairly bright, Ziffels. Not about this at all. I think that you're idealistic, and I understand what you're saying, but it's not going to happen. Enforce the rules as written. I mean, that is a Pollyanna notion. I mean, it hasn't been done since you started watching the game. Why should it start now? I mean, I don't understand. I'm done with the game. I'm finished with the game. Because it isn't a game. It's an exercise in violence. People are getting really badly hurt. And you're right. Corey Coleman could have been killed by that headshot. Absolutely. But I'm not waiting for the officials to suddenly stand up on their hind two legs. They're employees, man. I want the league abolished. I want those rich white men who own these franchises, these rich white Republican men who own these franchises, to be put out of business. The guy who owns the Cleveland Browns could only make money by cheating people in the trucking business. I want him out of business because he's not good enough to be in business. That is the point. That's the point of all of this.
He never should have been allowed to buy a football team because he has no clue what he's doing. He didn't have a clue running his other business, and it shows. He's a snake oil salesman, just like we've been calling him since the beginning.
And they had to bring somebody into Cleveland. They had to bring somebody in who had a tie with another team, and so he was a minority owner, and this is what we got. But again, the issue for me is not sitting there saying, I want, and again, he's bringing up boxing, If you watch the Andre Ward fight, all right, against Kovalev, and if you think Andre Ward won that fight, then you are really the dumbest fucker who's ever lived, all right? But you knew who was going to win that fight. Kovalev won the first 6 rounds and knocked his opponent down. It was mathematically impossible for Andre Ward without a knockdown to win or draw that fight, but he did somehow. Because somehow they had him 1 point up at the end, and he's jumping around like, I won. He didn't outpunch the guy. He didn't hit the guy harder. Kovalev landed the harder shots. He clinched and grabbed the whole fucking fight, and was not a single point was taken away from Andre Ward. But you see something? That is the way the sport has always been built. There's one guy who's bulletproof because he's owned by the right people, and the guy coming to the United States from a foreign country who's the better fighter, who wins the fight, gets screwed. It's happened over and over again. So the Browns aren't, it's not the only team getting screwed. The officials are doing what the league tells them to do. The game should no longer be legal. And if they forced people like the Kraft family and the Rooney family to make an honest living doing something productive, they couldn't do it. We talk about Donald Trump's going to come in, he's going to turn the whole world upside down. Well, why don't we turn the whole fucking football thing upside down and just get rid of it? Get rid of it once and for all. And let's see how those owners rebound from that. Let's see what they do with their lives when they can't exploit people and get them hurt. when they can't create this entire thing surrounding dishonesty and the unwillingness to help people who are hurt and injured later in their lives. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm done with it. I walked away. I turned the television off and I walked away. I'm done with professional football. Done with it. Because everything you're saying is true, Ziff. But the difference between you and I is you keep watching it, expecting it to change. I stopped watching it because I realized after all these years, it's getting worse, not better, and it's never going to change. And I don't want to be watching it. You know, I saw something horrible. In racing, in the Grand Prix racing, all track people not in the cars, but the people who are around the track, who are there to assist, have to wear fireproof outfits. Mm-hmm. That is the law in Grand Prix, but it didn't used to be.
Fires are invisible, man. They're crazy. You can't see them. It
wasn't always like that. The reason it was like that is because of a guy who was driving. He flipped his car, and the fire from the crash, he was trapped underneath the car, and the fire was underneath the car with him. His best friend, who's also a Grand Prix racer, jumped out of his car, quit the race because he saw what was happening, and desperately tried to turn the car over. He couldn't lift it. Went and got fire extinguishers. And this happened many years ago. He said he could hear his friend screaming in agony underneath the car until the screams subsided, and nobody at trackside lifted a finger to help him because Grand Prix racing didn't have the preparation to have their people in fireproof suits. Had they done that, there would have been 6 people who could have lifted that car up, and that man might still be alive. But you see, in the end, safety is governed by the sport, and they're either interested in it. And what the NFL is interested in doing is running a stupid-ass fucking commercial about how Microsoft tablets and all this shit are making the game safer and all these things that they're doing because they're really concerned. And what you see on the field every week are guys making these horrible hits, hurting one another, and being jubilant about it. That's what we're seeing. So I'm done with it. I don't want to watch that anymore, and I hope that more people will be like me and stop watching it and put it out of business.
God, that is so sad. I can't even imagine. I can't imagine. That's something he probably will never get out of his head, that sound. You know what I mean? That's something that you just can't forget about and move on.
And let me ask you, Ziffles is saying, I don't know if I expect change, but I'm reluctant to give it up. Football was more important in my life than it was in yours. Let me tell you something. I was reluctant to give up pizza. I was reluctant to give up red meat. I was really reluctant to give up all the foods that made me much fatter than I am today. I was very reluctant to give them up. But, you know, there's a greater good. In the end, you see that there's a greater good. You know, football was more important in your life than it was. Okay, it was important in your life, but that has nothing to do with what happens on Sundays. Your life, you can't live in the past. You played football when you were a younger man. You could look back on those years as being very fond memories, but that has nothing to do with what's happening on a football field to innocent men who are being having their lives taken away from them. It's, you know, I don't really give a shit how important it was in your life. You're vicariously living your childhood through these people dying on the field. I think that's sick. You know, I think it's sick, and I think it's twisted, and it's wrong. It's selfish, and it's shallow. You had your experience, good for you. Bula bula. You know, these guys are not having your little high school or junior college experience. These people are in the way of a fucking truck, man, and they're getting run over.
They're pawns. They're just pawns in a game.
And if you see every week how many of these people are being dragged off the field.
And nobody's immune. AJ Green, he tore his hammy or pulled it or ripped it? I don't even know. It doesn't matter how much money you make or how big your name is or how great you are. Nobody's immune anymore because it's just completely out of control.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is lost to me. The whole thing is lost. And, you know, The Browns, will they ever come back and get better? I don't care. I don't
And it's
care.
not even about them being shitty anymore or not winning. It's
How
not
many
even
have to
about
die?
that.
How many have to shorten their lives for that to happen? And I mean, by the time it happens, will there be any fans left to see it? I mean, I already said earlier in the year, it's going to take 5 years for this team to even get to a point, if they did everything right, where they could be like a 500 team. There isn't going to be any playoffs for this organization. All you're going to see is more of what you're seeing, guys getting hurt and guys being brought in like lambs to the slaughter. It's all you're going to see. And that's not entertaining to me. It's not savory. It's not something that I see as exciting. I'll watch my basketball, and every time I'm going to see LeBron dunk the ball, I'm going to throw, the alley-oop pass to Tristan Thompson. He's going to power the ball through the hoop. I'll see skill. I'll see skill being demonstrated. I'd even watch baseball and say, God, look at Lindor. Look how lively his bat is now. The ball jumps off his bat and how he squares the ball up no matter where it's pitched. He goes the opposite way. And I see skill there. I don't see any skill here. I just see a bunch of men being marched out on the field and being told to hurt somebody. That's what I see from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I am retributional. I would never let my people take that kind of a beating. If I were the coach of that team, I would tell my men to injure them. And I don't care how many penalties I got. God damn it. You got to fight back. You can't, in your home stadium, just anywhere, you can't allow people to just take cheap shots at you and dance over you. You can't do it. If they're not going to throw a taunting flag, then God damn it, you spear them. You spear them and you take them out. And that's what lawlessness does. I like laws. I personally don't like concealed weapons. I don't like people walking around with a weapon hidden on their person so that if they have an anger management problem, they whip it out and shoot whoever pissed them off. I don't like that. I don't like lawlessness. I like laws that are in place that define exactly what we can and can't do. And if those laws are not being enforced, then we live in a lawless society, and you better shoot first. You better shoot first, because you're not going to live. I wish I could tell you something better or more civilized. That's the law of the jungle. That's animals that don't get enough food die of starvation. That's the law of the jungle.
Woof.
The slower animal gets captured by the faster animal. That's the law of the jungle. The more aggressive wins. The bigger one, the faster one, stronger one wins.
The runt of the litter gets eaten by the mommy, and the Browns are the runt of the litter. The Browns are just a joke anymore. They have been since their reincarnation. Nobody respects the team. Nobody respects the ownership. You can't tell me that Jerry Jones is thinking, oh, Jimmy Haslam, he's a bright guy. He really knows what he's doing over there. You can't look at everything Jerry Jones now. I mean, he's a dirty motherfucker. I'm not going to say that he's some kind of great person like Robert Kraft. This isn't about who they are as humans. Obviously, they're shady-ass old dudes with too much money and too much power. But you can't tell me that even they respect someone like Jimmy Haslam, because they see that he's a joke and that he has no idea what he's doing. And since this team has been brought back to us, every year it just gets run deeper into the ground, harder into the ground.
Well, and again, this is the last I'll say, because we're 15 minutes over at the show. Dying on the field, Ziffel says, well, why don't you call Jim McMahon's wife? All right? Every play that you saw him take a beating was killing him. He was dying. A little piece of him was dying on the field. And that is proven with science. Brain cells are dying.
You can't tell me that ALS isn't caused by trauma to the spinal cord. It's not something that you have and, it just clicks in one day like cancer just gets tripped into a cell. No, that is definitely the movie Pride of the Yankees. You watch Lou Gehrig when he falls and trips across a row of bats, and within a short time span is when his body started shutting down. You can't tell me that ALS isn't caused by spinal cord trauma. And look at guys like Gleason. Look at him. He's just rapidly deteriorating. And for what? You can trot him out to the field in his wheelchair and you can make a spectacle of him and you can say that you're supporting him and his family, but you're not, because you're not changing anything to prevent this from happening to
anyone. League did nothing to help him after he did this. And and they argued that his condition had nothing to do with the sport. I mean, they are his enemy. They are just like the government treats the soldiers. They are exactly the same way. They deny.
Go away. We don't want to bother with you. We don't
That's
care.
right. You've already made the ultimate sacrifice for us. Now you've got Agent Orange. Fuck you. We're not going to hire you. That's the government, and that's the NFL. That's the way it is. And, so yeah, they're dying every week. A piece of them is dying on the field. And, you're not going to be talking to Josh McCown about your rah-rah years playing, JUCO football, Ziff. But I think that you should have a conversation with Josh McCown when he's 57.
He's not going to be here. He's not going to be able to watch his kids grow up. Trot him out on the field next week. He's not going to be around to watch his children grow up. He's not going to be able to walk his daughters down the aisle because he's not going to know who the fuck they are in 10 years.
Right. That's right. And so, and that's happening now. That's happening to him on the field today.
Did you see Tony Dorsett at the Cowboys game with Zeke? I mean, just looking at him just broke my heart, just thinking about everything that he's been going through. You got a living legend right in front of you. And, it's good that you give him recognition and you treat him like, the man that he is, because he's not going to be here much longer. And you did this to him. You allowed it to happen.
Yeah, it hurts me just to see all of this. And I do pay attention to the world around me. And I do pay attention to the former players who are suffering today and the people who are no longer with us. And a lot of the players don't have names that you remember because a lot of them were special teams players, guys that never stood out. They weren't the Walter Payton kind of guys. They weren't the superstar guys. A lot of them are people who are barely living, and some of them are
even like Lyle Alzado. I mean, who's to say that what happened with him wasn't a result of all the shit that he was probably feeling and thinking and going through? He was so screwed up that he probably was just looking for anything to dull the pain. Like Junior Seau fucking put a gun in his mouth. He couldn't take it anymore. Who's to say what these guys have gone through all their, when Bernie got pulled over for drunk driving one night, he wasn't probably even that drunk, but he was so incoherent because his brain's so fucked up that he's like, yeah, well, my O-line kind of sucked there for 5 years and they let me take a bunch of hits. I mean, he's being realistic. He's being real. You can't tell me that he's just totally drunk all the time. The man's brain it's scrambled eggs, and it's so sad. And they've shit on him, they've disengaged him from the organization. They've done nothing to help him. They've watched him go bankrupt, and they've allowed him to become a joke, and it's really sad. They don't do anything to protect their own at all or care for them in any kind of state, whether they're a current player, retired player, or a guy who was just on a practice squad for 6 years, taking those hits every day and running those plays and doing things on the field. He might have never made it. You might have never heard his name, but that doesn't mean that he's not suffering from all of the years that he was playing. I've always liked college more than the NFL because I've always seen quite a divide between the two. And even now, people complain about the targeting calls and the chop blocks and all sorts of things in college that they really don't look at in the NFL. But what happens when they get out of college? You're thrown to the wolves. They don't care about you anymore. They're not responsible for you. They don't care whether you live or die. You have nothing to live for. Here, you're done with college. Here, go sign your contract, make your money, and get your brain fried. Have a nice life.
All right, and I'm sorry, Ziffles, you played Division I. Good for you. I don't know what the hell difference it matters what level of football
he likes to
you
talk
played.
about his athletic past a lot. And
no, be proud of it. There's no reason not to be proud of it.
But were they really as great a memories as he wants you to believe? Probably not. Did he learn things from it? Yeah, but what was the cost? What happened to you after you did all that stuff?
Well, here's how I want to end the show. All right. Here's retired after the 1999 season. Afterwards was in pain. Had surgeries to repair knee and shoulder injuries, plagued by constant headaches, memory problems. Doctors told him he was suffering from post-concussion syndrome related to all the hits he took playing football. Living in South Florida, he had trouble holding down a job in the mortgage loan business. He had spent several years after his retirement lying around all day and doing nothing. Then came November 2006. I was lying in bed. I didn't go to work. I took migraine medicine, which makes you a little loopy, and then I hadn't slept in a couple of days, so I took some Ambien. And the next thing I know, it was Thursday. I was terrified, literally terrified. I had no idea what happened. It was scary. I turned on the TV, and it was on the news that former Philadelphia Eagles defensive back Andre Waters had committed suicide. And I myself was literally that close. I was like, holy smoke, what in the world? I was basically like, I don't even know where I'm headed. That's the story. That was Leroy Horde, former running back from the Cleveland Browns. Okay? Damn. And you wouldn't know that. And the reason you wouldn't know that, and I'm almost tearing up here, folks.
Goosebumps when you said that. I remember him, number 33. That was my dude.
I'm like tearing up reading this because,
I had no idea. I had no idea.
Because he didn't mean anything to anybody. He's just like the chaff, not the wheat. He was a guy who was a durable running back. He had a pretty decent career, but he was nothing special. And so you wouldn't, nobody wants to hear the story about how Leroy Horde's fucked up. Nobody wants to hear about that. But there's a gazillion more like him that have a lesser name than Leroy Horde, who made a Pro Bowl once in his career. There are a lot of people who never even get a whiff of that, and they're in the same condition that he's in, but they don't even have any means to tell their story because nobody knows who they are, because their name wouldn't mean anything. So I'm just trying to talk for the people who don't have a voice. I'm just tired of it. I want to go now. I just want to go, and I it hurts to do this sometimes. It really does, and I sometimes wish that that sports was a little bit more entertainment oriented and not quite so brutal. All right.
I hear you.
Thanks for joining me, Michelle.
Thanks for having me. You doing a Wednesday?
Wednesday. Be back on Wednesday, you bet.
Sounds good. I will be here for sure.
All right. Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye. And thanks, everybody, for hanging in on the extra 23 minutes on this edition of Moohead Radio. Back again on Wednesday, hopefully, to talk about things that are a little bit more fun. That's what sports were supposed to be when I grew up anyway. I played my sports and I had fun, but I never for a minute would defend a sport that's killing people. I wouldn't do that. Thanks, everybody, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.